Joining us to look at the national identity question is the Director General of the National Identity Management Commission, Chris Onyemenam. Good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you.
A whole lot has been done, and for a moment people thought NIMC was asleep or is asleep, because we had a whole lot of registration for Nigerians at every point by different agencies. Perhaps first, let's start by telling us what NIMC is about.
Thank you. NIMC is the National Identity Management Commission. It was set up by an act by the National Assembly, Act number 23 of 2007. Primarily, the mandate of NIMC is to create, establish, operate, manage the national identity database, and then provide a very widely acceptable and reliable identity authentication and verification service. And one other very important mandate of the Commission is the introduction of a general multipurpose card. And that basically is what the National Identity Management Commission is set up to do. Now, if you take the commission, the act, and you go through it and say, how do you categorize the various functions, activities that are encapsulated in the clauses in the act? You can categorize it into three. First, establish the commission as a government agency under the presidency, and it was deliberately done that way to ensure that there is sufficient, highest possible political attention. And secondly, wind down the former Department for National Civic Registration, which was responsible for the last Nigerian identity card scheme that we had. And then thirdly, institute a national identity management system. It is under the institution of the National Identity Management System that you have in Section 5 what we consider as a ground norm for the Commission, which is to establish, create, operate, manage a national identity database, and harmonize other existing identity schemes in government agencies, and by extension, the private sector.
Harmonize here, would that cover, I mean, we've had issues of data being collected by different agencies, police, FRSC, even the telecoms companies. Would your harmonization, would it involve all of them?
Yes, it will. Essentially, and that's really where the problem is. Essentially, there's a misconception. The misconception arises from the fact that in the past, what we've always focused on is the issuance of an identity card. And this misconception is grounded in one thing, that once you register an individual by whatever means and you issue the individual the card is then seen as the identity. Okay? That is absolutely wrong. An individual's identity must be distinguished from the way you access the information or the way you use that information. So in the past, there's been a focus on identity card issuance. What we have done now, or what we are doing now, is to effect a paradigm shift away from that focus on identity card to identity management. And you achieve that by creating a single version of truth regarding the personal information of individuals in a central identity repository that every other institution requiring that kind of information can then access. Okay? And it is organized and designed in such a way that there is an opportunity to continuously update that database. And those who want to access it and use it for one thing or the other follow a certain protocol, a security procedure, an access procedure, that somebody somewhere is responsible for managing that. Because the privacy of the individual is something that you must always ensure.
I do not know if you listened to our former guest. I mean, our guest who just left the studios now from Abuja.
Yeah, partially.
Okay, I don't know if you got to hear some of his concerns, and he even believes that NIMC, the NIMC, shouldn't be saddled with that responsibility. He believes another agency of government should be saddled with that responsibility. I mean, a yet-to-be-created agency, because according to him, you know, collection should be different from storage and management. Collection of data, as it were. Do you agree with him on that?
No, I don't. No, I don't. For the bit that I listened to, in some respects, yeah, he was right. In other respects, he was wrong.
What respect do you think he was right?
That is one area one aspect that he was wrong. In accessing what, in his evaluation of what we have done or what we are doing, I think in so many respects he was right. But in suggesting that there should be another agency, very quickly, what came to mind is the fact that he probably did not appreciate the fact that the Act establishing the National Identity Management Commission was meant to create just that.
You talked about a framework, because it would seem that your agency is supposed to be a framework of sorts, or house a framework of sorts for collecting information and managing that particular data. Where are we in that? Because you also talked about harmonizing. Who's the Nigerians do not believe that any information is being harmonized anyway?
I probably will like to comment this way. You know, when we started with the GSM revolution, that's the way I see it. It took us quite some time. People didn't really appreciate what was going on, because in the background, the basic infrastructure or the back end were being put together. And then all of a sudden, the boom. I think that is the kind of thing that we are experiencing in terms of how people perceive what we are doing.
In the
past,
at NIMC,
at the National Identity Management Commission, in the past, what we've always done, and I take very typical examples so that you can appreciate what I'm saying. Let's take the example of the SIM register. Okay, my commission was involved in the design of that register, and it's part of our strategy to ensure that there's a seamless harmonization and integration. And then at some point,
there's a design of the form, right?
No, not formed. I mean, when I say the SIM register, I'm talking of what data to collect, how to process, how to store, how to access, how to ensure that there's a single version of truth, how to make sure that even if you have 5, 6 numbers, they all can be related, connected to the individual. So when you are talking of the number of SIMs that are in operation, you truly will not be saying you have X millions in operation and looking at it as if each number is an individual, because I'm sure you probably have 2, 3 numbers. Okay, we were involved, and what I'm saying is part of what we're trying to do then was to ensure that there's a seamless integration.
But you were not involved in the collection, the actual collection of the data?
We were not involved. We were not involved. Let me just anchor the explanation.
Yeah.
Now, the idea then was that we could manage to use that process to gather the same data that we currently are doing, following certain standards. If you observe closely, what was done was to first capture data, interface with citizens, okay? And then they then went back to then begin to do the back room work, if you like. It's the same thing with the INEC. Okay, there is a period during which the registration exercise had to take place, and then they then went back to consolidate and collate the numbers. That's not the way we have done what we are doing. Even the last Nigerian national identity card scheme, people were asked to come out over a 6 weeks period, and then you then went back to the back end to start processing the data. That's not what we've done.
So what are you doing now?
What we've done is to create the back end. Okay, so if you go to any of our state offices across the country, you walk into the enrollment center there, you get enrolled, and maximum 1 minute, 2 minutes, you will get an enrollment slip. That enrollment slip bears on it the unique national identification number that is assigned to you. That confirms that there is only a single version of truth concerning your personal information in that system that we have already built. So we started from the back to the front, whilst in the past, you start from the front to the back.
Okay,
but
so
this is
upfront,
the same process. This is the same process that was before, where you finish registration, you get a slip.
No, you get a slip.
Yes.
But we are saying the slip that you get now, you have 2 types of slips. The first one is the tracking ID. Basically, if you post, if you submit an item to DHL, they give you a tracking ID, so you can track how it moves. Okay, that's not the important one, which is what we give as well.